watching that back, remind two things. I got absolute chills during that, again, kind of reliving all of those moments. And then also, secondly, guys, everybody did a really good job commentating all those moments as well. So kudos to everybody during that tournament. So many excellent moments from that Rotterdam, and excellent to see Oliveira on the stage once again.
I'm exactly with you, James. I was about to say the same thing. If you watch that, you just get sucked back into the moment, and it's almost like you're reliving it all over again. Watching that man, his dreams come true, but in a weird way, it felt that all of our dreams are coming true because we all kind of became Oliveira, and we're living the dream through him. Super memorable. One of the most beautiful things that I think we've ever witnessed in StarCraft 2. However, James, none of that truly matters today, right? Because if you would have asked me before that tournament, Oliveira versus Lambo, what are your thoughts, Roddy? I would have said 50-50. Now, in a weird way, we're supposed to say, like, Oliveira is the overwhelming favorite, and I still don't really feel that way. Like, I am definitely leaning a little bit towards Oliveira, but Lambo is still, without a doubt, one of the finer players in Europe. These two actually went 1-1 the week after Katowice in the playoffs of the team tournament. I think they're very evenly matched, but yeah, you have to side with the world champ because he's the freaking world champ. But it still feels close. I don't know if I'm crazy.
Fear Dragon, do you kind of agree with those sentiments? What are your thoughts coming in?
I mean, completely mirror those sentiments. I think the one thing I will say is that Oliveira, he still has been, I feel like, playing more impressive the past like few weeks that we've seen him in like random EPT weeklies and things like that. So I do still give just a tiny bit more favoritism to Oliveira, but no one can sleep on Lambo. And I think specifically you have to remember that this is an event where the players have now had the brackets for a little bit. They know who their first round opponents were. And Lambo is a player that does really well with that kind of level of preparation and everything. So I think you cannot sleep on Lambo's chances in this.
And after winning the World Championship, he probably became the most studied player out of all the players in the entire circuit to try and figure out exactly how to dismantle him. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. It is now time to head over to our commentators to bring you this one. It's our first series here on the World Bracket as we head over to them for Oliveira going up against Lambo.
Hello, we are here. My name is Katz and I'm joined by my friend Loco, casting with him for the first time ever, so this should be exciting. How are you?
I am doing very well, man. Looking back at that video just now, I am getting goosebumps all over again. I mean, such an amazing run for Oliveira, right? I mean, taking down some of the very best players in the world. Raynor, Hero, Maru, Hero Marine as well in the round of 8. I mean, just incredible. I'm excited for this one. It's gonna be fun.
The normal man. And I mean, I have to echo everything that Ravi, Roddy, and Kalaris were saying as well in the panel, because even though he won, I mean, before the event, I think if you had to put odds to it, to put money on Oliveira, I would have paid you like 200 or 300 times the amount, right? So it is like, I'm not even kidding. It was just such an unlikely result. But I like what Ravi said there as well. I think that all this pressure has worked well for Oliveira in the way that he has been carrying himself after the World Championship. Like, he had a very close series against Dark in one of these EPT Open Cups in Korea in the finals, right? And he isn't a player before that World Championship that we would have put in the finals of even the EPT Open Cups. And so he has been stepping up his game, and let's see if he can convert here against Lambo. As in the bottom right hand side of your screen, it is the world champion, the normal man, Oliveira for Kaisi Gaming.
And all the way up here in the top left-hand corner from Germany, we're looking inside of the main base of Lambo. All right.
His beard and his hair don't match.
He did do his hair, man. It looks incredible.
The hair looks incredible, but then the beard, I mean, I'm not saying it looks bad or anything. It just doesn't match the hair. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you cut Lambo's face in half there. It looks great.
As someone who can't grow a beard, I'm a little jealous of it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I can only grow like most of the beard, but I get patchy spots like between the mustache and the beard, so I just can't. But yeah,
this is going to be an interesting match. I gotta say, I agree with what Roddy was saying earlier as well. Like, in my mind, this is a matchup that should be relatively close. But if you look at the predictions especially on our Liga leg, it's giving an overwhelming advantage to Oliveira. And even though Oliveira, of course, won the World Championships and he's been doing very well ever since, in my mind, it's gonna take a little bit more to really truly convince me. So I'm excited to find out what ends up going down right here, man. Lambo, such a strong Zerg player, right? I mean, maybe a little bit overshadowed by names like, for example, Raynor and, for example, Serral, but Lambo is amongst the very best Zerg players in Europe, and I think he can put up a good fight.
Oh, certainly. See, he certainly can. I would think that this is a 2-1 series either way or something of the sorts if I had to bet on it. So let's see what happens here. Oliveira went for the SCV Scout to make sure that the Reaper is free to go out and doesn't have to stay to account for any early pulls or anything like that. Lambo already dropping his third, so that will not be a hindrance from the Reaper on that regard. And Oliveira is just going to look to poke and do whatever damage kills. If he kills 1 or 2 links, I'm sure he'll be happy. A drone is huge, though.
Yeah, you're not supposed to get a drone at this point. Oftentimes, it's not even necessarily the worker loss, but the mental disadvantage as well, right? As soon as you lose a drone here at this point in the game, you feel like you've made a terrible mistake, and it's certainly not supposed to happen.
Yeah, but I think that mental disadvantage comes from experience. It's very difficult to quantify, but I mean, you only have 20 drones at the point at which you're losing 1, right? So it's like a decent chunk of your economy at that point. And the worst part is, while we as players may not be actively accounting, right, for how much money you have. Okay, you have a little bit less income, who cares, is what you might say. But your timings that you have embedded over playing thousands of games are going to be slightly different. It can definitely throw you off, right? Because you're just going to have that little bit less money to make the drones or whatever have you, the next step of your build, your next queen, a little bit later.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Standard opener right here from both players, though, all things considered. Oliveira going for a 1-1-1. He's building a tech lab as well, so maybe we'll be seeing that one switched on over. No, it doesn't look like it. He decides to go... maybe we'll see the big switcheroo here in a moment. He decides to just sort of have the tech lab for now. He's certainly going to make use of that here.
Yeah, so probably a Banshee or something like that, but opens with the medevac first to apply a little bit of pressure. This is something that Beyond likes doing quite a bit. Actually, he's just going to go for a 2-on-1 by the looks of it, as he starts another barracks on the reactor and most likely Stim on the tech lab. So
yeah, it's a triple Rex opener here, so he's definitely going to delay his command center for quite a while, bumping out a ton of units. And this is one of those builds we see quite frequently, but it's not super popular, right? It's one of those builds that can definitely throw somebody off guard if they're not prepared for it, because it's going to hit pretty hard. Getting an Overlord over here as well. Very good situation here so far for Oliveira. Lambo needs to figure out what he's playing against, and so far he has no clue.
Yeah, you're completely right about that. I mean, he's going to show up with an overwhelming amount of Marines, and normally this doesn't carry a medevac when you try and do something like this. It's going to delay his third CC as a result, but Oliveira will have a timing here at some point. He's obviously cutting Hellions for that, only has 1 Hellion there for defense, and perhaps to try to confuse Lambo should he poke up his ramp. So a very unusual but very cool opening here from Oliveira.
Zerk, in the meantime, on the back of this, trying to get that Baneling speed going here momentarily. It is a very important upgrade. The question is, will it be ready in time for when that attack from the Terran player comes across the map? Lair's only about halfway done at this point. It's not lined up with the Baneling nest at all. So this is, to stay safe against some of those earlier attacks from the Terran player. But what we really have to watch out for is when Oliveira starts moving across the map. Then again, though, as our lovely observer is already pointing out, he is adding on a double NG bay as well. So he may very well wait until 1-1 upgrades as well as the combat shields finishes.
I think he's going with Stim right now because he has a very strong timing of 3 medevacs. He's at least going to poke, and Banelings without speed, they are in jeopardy of getting picked off here. So here comes the Stim from Oliveira. He's already going to pick off a queen. This is wonderful. Sees the Banelings whirling away without speed. Gonna be easy pickings here for Oliveira. This looks terrible already for Lambo.
Yeah, this is an amazing fight right here for our Terran player. There's a lot of Banelings about to finish, but like you said, there's no Baneling speed yet. He needs to respect this, of course. You got to be very careful. You don't want to just randomly lose those Marines. Beautiful grenade as well.
Wow, I mean, that grenade was out of this world. The Baneling barely connects just with the Hellion. It could have been a magical Baneling there had he been able to move just a couple inches more forward, but as it stands, it's just going to be GG, and Oliveira will take game 1 convincingly with a very unusual opening.
Yeah. So you mentioned it, right? Losing the 1 drone, it throws you off of your game, even if it's just a little bit. He then lost the Overlord on the back of it too. He didn't really see any Hellions. He just saw a strangely timed medevac. That is something that we don't normally see. And Oliveira, I mean, reading his opponent like a book, playing that out really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was hitting with 3 medevacs full, granted without combat shields, at around 5 minutes and 30 seconds, right? Like where we have normally like 2 medevacs with stim and combat shields a little bit earlier, a few seconds earlier than that, maybe like at 5:10 at the earliest or so. So a little bit later, but with many more units. No combat shields granted, but I mean, this is an overwhelming force here that we are seeing on the screen from Oliveira. So beautifully done. Also, Lambo kind of playing in the dark, not accounting for everything that he could. So as a result, he was kind of forced to make spores, right? Because he doesn't know if there's banshees coming or if there's gonna be like liberators. Even you can reposition those spores to help you out, right? So just not knowing what was coming hurt his economy in the process. And yeah, I mean, rough for Lambo. He's gonna have to be a little bit more diligent about collecting his information now.
Yeah. One of the reasons why he couldn't gather so much info is because he ended up losing that Overlord as well, right? Normally you sent that one in a little bit later, and you're playing in the dark. You're then forced to make spore crawlers against, well, liberators and potentially banshees, but those weren't coming out at all. So all of those small advantages from earlier on, they led to a very large advantage right there eventually, and easy win it seemed for Oliveira.
Yeah, and it's not even a bad read either, because he knew that there was 1 medevac out, so it was probably a starport that made 1 medevac and then was swapping onto an add-on or adding an add-on after. And if you're gonna make medevacs off of that, you usually would just make the reactor, right? So to expect a tech lab follow-up is not ludicrous from Lambo. It's just a very odd timing. 3 medevacs is so unusual from Oliveira, and that was a game as convincing as it gets. So looking like a world champion for sure.
Yep. All right, so here we go. Game number 2 in this best of 3 series. We find ourselves on Gresvan, spawning right here in the top left-hand corner of the map. He is Oliveira.
And in the bottom right-hand side, playing for the Shopify Rebellion, it is your king, Lambo. Whew, that grenade as well, man. Like, I mean, that's gotta be one of the most impactful, most beautiful grenades I've seen in a very long time, especially in this matchup.
Yeah, keeping that Reaper alive. Normally it's one of those units that eventually gets picked off, right? But when you have it around, you may as well throw a grenade down if you could find the APM to do so. Now, it's very easy to accidentally find the APM to do so and then walk your Marines into the Banelings. Luckily for Oliveira, he didn't do that, but yeah, brilliantly done right there.
Yeah, I mean, it made it look like you should make a Reaper with that push. Like, I would pay like $200 for that Reaper right there, right? Like, that was just for the 1 grenade. That was crazy good. And yeah, I mean, to be impressed with a grenade at this point after seeing what Beyond did in his series against Ragnarok is saying something. But Oliveira really stepping it up here. He's going to go once again for the SCV Scout just to make sure that his Reaper is free to move out on the map after.
Yeah, so that previous game is an example of making a small mistake earlier on that eventually leads to a big advantage. And it's important for Lambo that he doesn't get too frustrated by that sort of thing, right? I mean, he made a mistake. It's something he can prevent, and he certainly should prevent right here in game 2. Oliveira actually going to go for the SCV Scout as well, so not really leaving anything up to chance. He's going to find out exactly what he's playing against, and when he sees the creep, he sees the hatch. Time to go back home.
Yep. That will free up the Reaper. He knows that he doesn't have to stay back. It's not a pull first. There's not going to be links on the other side of the map sneaking on through. And Lambo is hiding his drone so that the Reaper isn't able to stop the third, as the Overlord gives him the heads up that he's going to have the right time to do that. He's just going to drop it. And yeah, Oliveira is just going to do the same thing. Hopefully we don't see any drone losses here.
Okay, well, good dancing so far. Oliveira trying to bait those Zerglings off creep, but now that the Queen is out, it's going to be very difficult to get much done, and he actually double injects. Interesting. So that's usually one of those mistakes, or, well, I mean, it could be one of 2 things, right? It's either a mistake, or it's something that you, want to actually have to get a ton of units going in the earlier stages of the game. Usually, though, it's an indicator of autopilot. At least that's what I usually find in my own games, but we'll have to find out what Lambo decides to go for here. Oh, I think did he go for it? Oh, he went for a tumor with the Queen in the main base, I think. It walked all the way down? Ah, okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of a beautiful move, right? Because, yeah, the creep tumor is a little bit later, but you actually get to inject the hatchery in the natural, which means you're going to get your drones produced in the natural, and they're going to have less travel time than if you inject in the main, right? So it's a really nice detail here that Lambo goes for.
Nice.
Very well thought out.
Yeah. Okay, so I thought he was going to go for the double inject there, but not quite the case. So this should be just a regular macro opener right here for Lambo. So once again, it's a quick triple CC right here for Oliveira. A little bit quicker, though, that third command center than in the previous game.
Oh yeah, for sure. No shenanigans on the aggression here. This is kind of like his go-to standard opening in TVC here. He's just going to open with the Viking and the Hellions, so kind of setting himself up to control the Zerg creep spread, to control the information that he gets out on the map with those overlords, and head a little bit more comfortably into a mid-game scenario. So this game a little bit more likely to go longer, as the Zerg is not usually going to be the aggressor, and Oliveira seems to be confident and comfortable sitting back a bit.
Have you seen Oliveira play BattleMech recently?
I have not seen him play BattleMech.
Yeah, he seems very fond of just good old conventional bio, right?
Yeah, good old conventional bio, and he kind of mixes everything up, right? Like he had in his Katowice run in TVC, he had Banshee openings, he had this opening, he had the type of opening that we've seen, maybe not with a triple medevac. I think that he's been cooking for that one.
Oh wow, no grenade this time.
Yeah. No, I mean, those queens were a little bit crazy moving that far, but it works out. And
it's a double factory this time around, so I'll have to see exactly what the plan right here is for Oliveira. I was wondering if he would be playing BattleMech at all. Maybe he's going to be mixing some of that in as well.
Might be.
Yeah.
I mean, we have mines on the way. This is absolutely crazy, right? It's a Hellion. Yeah. It's a Hellion build to start.
It's
8 Hellions. Yeah. So it's gonna be maybe Hellbats at the potential 4th to try to cancel it, and then Hellions running into the main, I would imagine. But I mean, Lambo already in position with the queens, but that's gonna free up the main, where Oliveira is gonna be able to do a little bit more damage, perhaps too much, as Lambo doesn't have an overlord in position to spot. Oh man.
Yeah, I think you're on point right here. He doesn't need to have the units in multiple locations all at once. The medevac allowing these units to go straight into the main base. There are still Hellions on the, well, right side of the map, not doing a whole lot. 6 drones end up going down, but the medevac, oh my god, is he gonna get more?
No. Oh god. Oh, one more shot would have killed like 3 workers.
Yeah. That would have been a disaster. Here's that second group. I thought they'd be moving at the same time, but I think Oliveira was like, you know what, I'm gonna put all my effort into microing these units because they seem to be doing quite well.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Once he finds the opening, he says, okay, this is where I'm gonna allocate my attention. And that's why I thought maybe just more of the Hellbats on the other side, but there was already 3 queens with good amounts of energy to answer that. So yeah, very nice moves from Oliveira overall.
Yeah, it's mass Widow Mine right now on the back of this. We have Drilling Claws, multiple medevacs. This is built. Crazy. This is a build. Not something I've seen before, but it's a build.
It's definitely a build, and like you said, I mean, there's a Cyclone in production, so perhaps a little bit of a battle mech transition. I mean, you need kind of a spine, right? Like, the mines are never gonna win you the game. They're gonna get you ahead economically at best. So let's see what Oliveira does here. He's trying to out multitask Lambo, a Lambo that is one of the best players at setting up perimeters, but Oliveira has already identified that there isn't an overlord on the south side, so he is kind of abusing that with this next medevac. Lambo is trying to account for it with spores, however. But Oliveira's gonna play past.
Oh, these are gonna burrow so fast. Yeah, there's no reaction here in the main base because there's also Widow Mines on the right side, and that is so many drones going down. Luckily, the ones at the 4th base were taken care of, but now the Natural is in trouble as well, and more drones go down. Oh my god.
I get to evacuate too. Another one. Oh no, hold me. 24 workers have already fallen. I will not be surprised if Lambo GG's within the next few seconds, because he is the type of player that doesn't like to stick in games that are kind of done a lot of the time. And this one, I mean, he just lost 36 workers after losing 7 to the Hellion start as well.
Yeah. So I don't want to do the caster thing and give you guys too much hope, but Lambo does have a lot of creep spread. He does have Hydra on the back of this too, and he is just holding down the drone button because you can't really go for a very aggressive push off of this, right? Now he's been making siege tanks and Hellions. Can Oliveira close out this game? Because he just killed 40 workers, but if you look at the worker count right now, it's well back even.
It's back even, but Lambo doesn't really have a reason for it to be back even, in the sense that his tech is so very low, and he was also making units expecting some sort of attack as a follow-up, and they never came, so those units are just kind of sitting there, right? Like you said, I mean, Lambo has done a wonderful job of just kind of re-droning. He's playing this as if, almost as if he was playing against a Phoenix opening in the Protoss matchup, right? Like, where he's just like, okay, I'll take the damage, I'll take the punch to the face, and just try to do something later. And to his credit, I mean, the one saving grace for Lambo is that Oliveira is meching, right? And Oliveira had to have been meching to do something like this, because you need that many factories worth of production to be as aggressive as he was with the Hellions and then the mines. So Lambo will have time.
Yeah, if you were to tune in right now, you probably wouldn't assume that the Zerg 2 minutes ago lost 40-something workers, right? Like, it's
Right.
it's actually looking relatively good right now for Lambo, but the next attack is going to be very scary. So he's going Mass Overlord right now. He's adding on a ton of upgrades as well. Is he going to have enough time?
That's the thing, and if there was a production cost time or production cost tab as well, as far as like the setup that Oliveira has, he's very well set up to go into the later stages of the game. So a lot of his advantage isn't seen in terms of bases, even though he's up to 5 with another CC on the way, but also in terms of production. He has the factories to go into the late game should the game extend that far, and we will most likely see a timing as well that will be very difficult for Lambo to stop. Lambo is also going for Hydra Ling. That is not usually the kind of composition that you want against mech, right? A lot of the times we will see like Ravagers, Roaches, faster transition into Vipers, maybe even Swarm Posts. But Hydra, Ling, Bane does not fare that well, especially against these Hellions.
Oh, he really wanted to knock down those rocks right there, losing a couple more Zerglings in the process as well. Okay, what he can do, though, is set up a massive surround. That's exactly what the plan is right now. He grabs the siege tanks before they can siege up.
Yeah, but I think he has to back now, perhaps. No, he's going. Okay, the last tank is not sieged. Oliveira might have been done better to evacuate the tank on the medevac there, as the siege is going to cost him without even firing a shell. And now Lambo on hot pursuit. He will have to back away from this planetary fortress for sure, and he does. But yeah, I mean, a little bit of breathing room there for Lambo.
Yeah, no, that was an important win for sure. Economically, it's still not quite there, but the creep spread is still looking pretty solid, especially in the top section of the map. Oliveira, though, like you pointed out, he's been putting a lot of money into just building up his infrastructure, right? So he's got command centers for days here. He's going to be adding on even a couple more as well. He's adding them on, though, before maxing out, which honestly makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's still pretty confident in his position, right? He has a planetary fortress forward here, so I wouldn't have thought that that is a very vulnerable position, but Lambo thinks otherwise, and he's actually going to exploit exactly what you were talking about. And I mean, that's a little bit of luck almost in the sense that Oliveira is being very greedy and is getting caught a little bit with his pants down, and Lambo identifies an opportunity where maybe he can go into the natural base, but will settle for some SCV damage at the third, much needed. That is huge.
Yeah, tons of SCVs go down. In the meantime, Lambo has lost his 5th hatchery at home. There are plenty of command centers to replace the ones that just went down, but Oliveira, after being at a dominating advantage earlier on, is, well, now sort of throwing away this game, right? It's slipping out of his control.
I mean, and to the credit of Lambo, he is one of the best positional players, I think, within this matchup. Usually against Bio is where I see it, where he always sets up those flanks, those surrounds, and he's so good at collapsing onto an army from a 360-degree angle, and he did that exactly here. He had the units to do it on the area that didn't have creep, so it's difficult to fault Oliveira for not being set up, for not sieging those tanks preemptively, right? Because that side of the map was free of creep. Like you said, all of the creep spread of Lambo is towards the right-hand side, and that is the area that you normally split the map on. So let's see now as Lambo continues to attack.
Yeah, no, I don't like this engagement nearly as much. You were just talking about all of those flanks that he likes to set up. Well, he desperately needed one over there because he just sort of ran into the siege tank line of fire there, and basically all the banelings died before they ever got close.
Yeah.
That being said, though, there was a scan in the main base just now, and Oliveira spotted, okay, my opponent, he is not going for any Vipers yet. There's not even a Hive. I mean, right now it's about halfway done, but there are no Infestors. It's just purely Lingbane Hydra. That means you have to rely on those surrounds, right? So taking it down a little bit slower and not really, going too aggressive here. I actually quite like that choice from Oliveira. He just needs to get a really powerful army going.
Yeah, completely agreed. And I mean, on the side of Lambo, you can understand that last poke as well, right? Because he feels like he had some momentum going, and what he wasn't accounting for, perhaps, was how much production Oliveira had already set up. So Oliveira was very quick to remake units, where Lambo was not expecting, so perhaps these links actually with some potential here will kill all of the Cyclones and the Swarm Hosts.
Yeah, there's 16 Swarm Hosts just about to spawn.
I love it.
So because the mass siege tank transition has almost been forced out, right, by seeing that Hydroling Bane army, Lambo's like, you know what's really good against siege tanks? I guess I can make a bunch of swarm hosts and see if I can rain those lurkers to my opponent's side of the map. It is a little bit of a chance, and he knows it's probably not the preferred choice if this game would have gone his way earlier on, but I mean, he is making the best of a very difficult situation.
Absolutely, you're spot on. And I think that Lambo's transition is beautiful here because he is recognizing exactly what we're talking about. But even earlier, before it happens, he had already this transition done, right? And that's beautiful because look at this position for the Swarm hosts. Lambo has had map control for so long, and he recognizes that he's going for the snipe, but actually the siege tanks with beautiful focus fire kind of ignoring the army in favor of killing the Locust. So a couple of shells will protect Oliveira's planetary fortress here.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised he didn't split up those Locusts a little bit and go after the tanks. He wanted to go for the biggest target on the screen right there, but usually guaranteed damage is the way to go. I don't think he really likes the result there. Usually the first wave of the Locust, right, is so critical because now they're going to be on cooldown for like, well, half a minute.
Yeah, I think he was trying to press on the same limb that he was applying pressure to before, right? Because he got rid of this position of this planetary fortress, so I think he wanted that reset. But now he's going to take your advice, go after the isolated tanks, knowing that the planetary fortress is kind of unkillable. Actually flying a little bit too far onto the SCV line, thinking there's too many Hellions to land onto another tank. But won't get too much for his troubles there.
Okay, so what Oliveira is trying to do right now is max out on a really powerful army. The main downside of these swarm host supplies is that they're very supply heavy, right? They're very supply dense, so it's hard to max out on strong army. This is basically the entire force that Lambo can muster here without the swarm host added, so there's really not that many Zerg units available. And as soon as those Locusts are on cooldown, there's not much the German Zerg can really do, so he needs to get more value out of those swarm hosts for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why you don't make too many more swarm hosts, right? And that is also why Lambo is opting to go for banelings. For supply, they are going to be extremely efficient. A couple of swarm hosts will go down, but he has to land those connections with banelings. And the longer this game goes, the more you have to like the position for Oliveira. It's very easy to understand, I think, why of all maps he would choose this one to go mech for, because it's a very easy map to split. And in the middle bases, if it comes down to a split map scenario, the high ground usually favors things like siege tanks, right? So,
here we go. Once again, though, Lings and Banes trying to connect to whatever they can. Siege tank is getting a bunch of damage in from the back, and this standing army here from Lambo just is not very inspiring.
It really is, and that's where I would love to see an Infestor for Fungo. When there is that much commitment to Hellions and Cyclones, they can really do a lot to push that army back, to make them think twice about clamping up and moving forward, right? So Lambo's not going to be able to do that. Instead, he's going for a Locust surround, but those units are so slow. If Oliveira identifies this, he will be able to disengage most likely. He does get in position with the Hellions, and the Locust will not land on anything.
Yeah, some of them landed early. I don't know exactly how they came to the ground that quickly, but these swarm hosts have not really been worthwhile. He has been remaking a couple of the ones that he's lost, and Lambo in the meantime has been gobbling up all of the bases up north as well, so at least he has a place to fall back to. But fighting this main army here from the Terran head-on is going to be very difficult. Although, well, these little split pushes, that's no match for the Zerg.
That's not much for the Zerg indeed. And Oliveira has been doing a wonderful job of just kind of applying pressure on the same side of the map over and over again. That is the map without creep. And with banelings off creep, I mean, it's so very difficult to chase. So really, these swarm hosts have to come in with a flank. They do this time around, and here comes the link banelings around. Lambo might be able to get a cleanup here.
Yeah, no, that was brilliantly executed, setting up a massive surround. These couple of Vikings up north, though, have now killed 11 drones, just landing right in the middle line, taking down a whole lot of them. Hatchery does end up going down as well, but Lambo is still alive.
No.
All of his swarmos got found in the middle of the map.
Yeah, and you can understand why they're there. Again, they're looking for that flank. They're looking to try to make something happen, because otherwise Oliveira can just keep going and disengaging over and over again on that side of the map. Oliveira has already taken his next base as well down south, so things are looking very good for him still.
I think this is one of those games, right, where Lambo is like, okay, I thought I was losing at like the 3-minute mark. I'm just going to make the best of it right now. And he's doing a wonderful job making some decisions he might otherwise not make. There we go. Once again, essentially, well, free siege tanks, right? I mean, obviously some of the Ling Banes and Hydras go down, but the Locusts, they're just a cooldown.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was good by Lambo, but I mean, he's getting a little bit starved over time, right? If we look at the economy, is there an income graph that we can take a look at? Because Lambo is working off of 60 workers versus 86, plus a whole lot of mules. And he is trading inefficiently, as we just saw in the resources lost as well. So we can see here the turn for Oliveira over the last few minutes. It has been him in the commanding lead.
Yeah. While Oliveira was on the other side of the map, he's been taking all of the bases on the left side as well, and that's really been his saving grace here, right? He managed to max out on a really strong army. Here come the Locusts once again. This army, though, from the Terran in a head-on fight is so much better.
Oh, wow.
Okay, maybe he can get the planetary? Yeah.
That was absolutely beautifully executed as far as those locusts are concerned, and they will get the planetary for their efforts. Every single locust was spread out as best as they could have been there. Lambo kind of waiting until he's right on top of the planetary fortress so that the locusts get us around rather than landing on one side of it. So beautiful move again, but he has been on the back foot the entire game, so he needs to continue to make this type of move, and he needs to continue to try to find an opening where he can actually take his side of the map comfortably and begin some sort of transition. We see Vipers on the way. That is something.
Yeah, he's forced to remake drones right now. These units, the harassment here, it's just been dealing too much damage, right? He's been trying his best. Now there's an orbital as well, and the nice thing about orbital commands is that they can fly whenever the locusts come in, so they're not as big of a problem anymore, and he's got plenty of orbitals to choose from. But yeah, you brought up the Vipers. The Vipers are going to be very nice for like longevity in particular, right? You want to try and gain value with those units over time. The problem here is that I'm not sure exactly how much time Lambo still has in this game. He's only got 63 workers. He doesn't have much of a bank. I like this game more for Lambo than we did earlier, but it's still a little bit shaky.
It's very difficult. I mean, these Vipers, they have to abduct whatever they can on cooldown pretty much and go gain more energy, basically. They have to get rid of even some Cyclones. They are kind of like an infestor, only, you know, it's more of a safe bet, right? You harpoon something, you are going to kill it, versus the Fungal, which could net you a huge win in catching the entire army to get set up for a huge surround or something of the sorts. But Oliveira, yet again, and there's the harpoons onto the Cyclone, so that's something, but that might also mean go time for Oliveira because he already paid the taxes. And so now he is kind of free while those Vipers are recharging their energy. The tanks are not going to be hindered at all. And on the other side as well, he is applying more pressure. And yeah, this game is looking beautiful for the champ.
Yeah, lovely movement right there as well by Oliveira, moving in right around the time that his main army pushes in, and it seems like he's going to get both the drones as well as the hatchery down south. There's the Locust Wave, while the main Zerg army is cleaning up those units up north, but he should be able to clean these up pretty easily. Blue Flame Hellions, yeah, they're still going to be pretty good. Although, you know what, that's a lot of friendly fire.
Yeah, but it's not going to cost Oliveira too much. Again, 74 workers to 55. That is the graph that I wanted to see. So thank you very much to our observer. I mean, the income advantage really tells the tale of this game. I really have to commend Lambo on how much of a fight he's putting up. And also the spirit, because again, I've seen him leave games where you lose 40 workers. I mean, every one of us that plays Zerg Loco, we lose 40 workers, we feel like the game is probably done, right? And Lambo, having been known to leave games early, really sticking through in this one and giving himself some openings and some chances, but I doubt it's going to be enough this time around.
Well, he's certainly going to try, and I love the fact that he's stuck in his game for as long as he has, because he has been making the best of a really difficult game. Now his Viper count is growing, though. We've already seen how much value those couple of Vipers he's had up to this point have had, right? So if he can continue harpooning those Terra units for, well, there's just a little bit of energy, he does still have a fighting chance. Now these Swarm hosts, they've been having a rough time overall, but let's see how well the Vipers here will do.
Yeah, basically just one harpoon per Viper there worth of energy, so Lambo can't commit too much more to this. And we were talking earlier about how the Hydra Link Bane is maybe not the best army against this type of composition. Once Vipers enter the fray, it's completely different because they can actually output so much damage that anything that gets abducted is going to die almost instantly, right? So the Vipers are a great combination to enhance this army for Lambo, but he needs to find damage time and time again, and he's still working at such an economic deficit and, you know, has lost more resources throughout the game. So it's a very difficult fight. Here comes Lambo, gets a couple of blinding clouds, but Oliveira with a beautiful pre-spread of those tanks, and Lambo will break on through to the middle of the map to reclaim a little bit of ground, but it's not gonna be too cheap here.
Yeah, he's gonna end up losing a lot of units because he is fighting off creep. Now he's fighting into a choke point, which I also find questionable. That being said, though, Oliveira's big units here are slowly falling. I don't think Lambo is having a great time in this game, but he also can't really leave, right? So he's like, okay, I'm just gonna keep trying, man. I'm gonna try and keep forcing it. Maybe I can somehow, some way get a perfect engagement. And I think he got very close, but Oliveira still has things locked up very tightly at home. Maybe these Locusts can get some more value in, but in the end, it's enough Terran. GG.
GG. I mean, a very cool game number 2. Game number 1 was a little bit of a stomp. And I mean, game number 2 looked like it should have been a bigger stomp even. It looked so great for Oliveira starting off, but Lambo held in and tried to make the best out of it. It just wasn't enough.
Yeah, really nicely done right there by our Terran player, though. I love the opener that he went for. That mass Widowmine style after the one that we saw him opening up with, right? With the Hellion drop in the main base and the Hellions over at the 4th. Just, oh yeah, a lot of fun. Anyways, we're going to be throwing it to the analyst desk to see what the boys have to say.
Thank you very much, guys. That was quicker than I expected, especially that first game. I felt like I picked up my phone and then looked back up and the game was over, but we have got ourselves Oliveira moving on 2-0. I feel like he's a bit of a time traveler here, boys. I feel like he's playing StarCraft from 2025 and has come back and suddenly brought this to the forefront here, Roddy, because some of his openers I was very interested by.
Yeah, he played good. He played like we expect a StarCraft 2 World Champion to play. As I said, they did play against each other twice after IM Katowice was over, and they went 1-1. So, you know, you have your hopes up for a very competitive series, and I think that Cat said it very well there towards the end. Game 1, bit of a stomp, and Game 2 looked like it was going to be an even bigger one. In the end, we got some very fun StarCraft out of them, but yeah, I think the boys kind of covered it all. Like, Lambo was just not totally ready for this. He made a couple spore crawlers. He's got like a 15 worker lead, so 15 workers plus spore crawlers, that means you're almost 20 workers ahead, and if you don't know what you're playing against, that is a problem. And Widowmines with drilling claws are also a problem, Claris.
Yeah, definitely. In these highlights presented by Aramco Fear Dragon, I cannot believe how many workers did he lose? 30-some before we still got to this mid-game scenario?
Yeah, 36 workers going down, and then somehow I have to really commend Lambo, even though he ended up losing that series, obviously. He really started pulling it back with these kind of attacks. He really started making a lot of progress. And then I have to say, the one thing that really started going wrong was it was after these attacks where he killed a lot of these things. He looked like it was a great spot. And then the transition to Swarmos really just didn't feel like it was working out. The first 5 or so waves, like, it kind of undid a lot of these great trades that you're seeing right now on the screen. Like, he was getting so many value trades earlier on, and it all just kind of got negated by, like, the Swarmos not really finding their mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to get your take on that, Rotterdam, as well, because to me as well in the back, I was like, 16 Swarmos. I really wasn't expecting it.
No, I was a bit surprised by the Swarmos, but I didn't hate them. But then it really all comes down to how we use them. But I do think there was one key fight right before the Swarmos where basically Lambo had that successful fight at the bottom side. And he had a successful attack on the planetary, got all the SCVs at the 3rd. Then he pulled back, he went again. And I think he did not really expect Oliveira to have as many units and be as well set up as he was. Because there were 2 Liberators sieged up and 3 tanks. So that was already a bit of a rough fight. But then it really came down to the Swarmos, and we're like, all right, that's a lot of locusts. This is going to be good, right? And the first locust wave was just very underwhelming. All of them clumped up between the minerals and the planetary fortress, while there were 6 tanks and a PF shooting at it. So then 16 locusts just disappeared. Well, if those locusts would have surrounded the PF like they did later in that game, or they would have been kind of 3 on a tank, 3 on a tank, 3 on a tank, then I think Lambo would have probably been able to close out that game, because he did a great job in recovering from the over 40 drones that he lost to the Widowmines. But yeah, it's just the Hydra bait attack into the one spot where he shouldn't have attacked, and then the underwhelming Locust wave is kind of what allowed Oliveira to, in the end, close it out 2-0.
Good point. They do a lot of DPS against static targets to those Locusts if they can find their mark. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. We're going to go to a short break, and when we return, more Gamers Without Borders. We have a TVT, a tantalizing one, on the way as Spirit and Hero Marine.